Hi, welcome back to Georgia is a Buy, a podcast about why you should have a look at the country of Georgia on the Black Sea if you would like to diversify your pension portfolio so that it doesn't rely on a very unstable, very slow growing European Union or UK economy. I found a very interesting statistic today, and that is what is the average median net wealth of older households in the UK aged 65 to 74. This is from the European Central Bank. Let's have a look at some of these figures. So, the top wealth, as you might expect, is Luxembourg, which is, let's face it, an exception. The UK is then number two at £502,000. So it's £1,000,000 in Luxembourg, £502,000 in the United Kingdom. Then comes Ireland with 354,000, Malta with 347,000, and Belgium with 233,000. Now this is surprising. France is number 5 at 230,000, Spain at 189,000. But then Germany is down in 8th place. Austria is down in 10th place. Germany has 180,000 net median wealth, and Austria has 168,000 net median wealth. Italy at number 11 has 164,000. Even the Netherlands has only 163,000. Finland 153,000 as well. Okay, then you've got all the former Soviet bloc countries. That is not surprising to me that the former Soviet countries would be lower. Okay, Slovakia 111,000, Czech Republic 118,000. What is surprising is that places like Estonia, Hungary, Lithuania, Latvia have very little wealth. So when we look at the Baltic states, Estonia leads with £82,000 worth of wealth. This is household wealth. This is the man and the woman, typically. And if you then look at Lithuania and Latvia, Lithuania is £60,000 and Latvia is £35,000. So this is nothing in today's standards. I mean, in the UK, if you had a household that was worth £35,000, you would consider them to be extremely challenged, let's say, if they were retired into those circumstances. What I take away from this is that, okay, British people do have £500,000 as the median when they go into their pension years. It's not too surprising because a lot of people have houses that they own in the UK. It is very surprising, however, that Germany is only 180,000. I think the reason for this is that countries like Germany, which since let's say the war, most of the lifetime of these people, the boomer generation, they have had a strong economy and they have very good social security, a very good pension system, but it's not that good. I think the average pension in Germany is a little bit more than the UK, but it's not that much more. The overall message, I think, from looking at these figures, just to remind you, Ireland at 354,000 median wealth, Germany at 180,000 median wealth, Italy at 164,000 median wealth. I think the lesson to take from this is that pensioners in Europe are not rich. And this podcast is primarily aimed at people who are not baby boomers, but people who are in their 40s and 50s and pulling together the funds required for a good retirement, creating personal wealth. And these Generation Xers and millennials, they need to think about this, that even today the boomers are not wealthy. They're not wealthy. The average median household is not wealthy. They depend very much on the state or on private pensions. I believe that the risk of significant disruption to the stock exchanges in Europe and those diversified into America over the next 10 to 20 years is very high. I personally, and I'm not a financial expert, would say that the chances of another crash are almost 100%. I cannot envisage a situation where the stock market now never experiences a crash. And therefore, if you are building up a pension portfolio, and if you are European, and if you're basing a lot of that on the performance of European stocks and shares or American stocks and shares, then I think you will face some challenging periods where the stock exchange crashes. Let's call that a drop of 20% or more. In 2008, it was up to 50%. Why is that a problem? Because if you retire and this occurs in the first few years, or if it occurs a few years before you retire, when you start to have to draw down on your pension portfolio, this will affect you for the rest of your life. And indeed, you could even run out of money. I believe that a lot of the financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor, I by qualification, I have a master's degree in business administration. I'm a former chartered accountant, but I am not giving you financial advice. I'm just talking about what I see as an individual who's been retired for nearly 10 years. A British person who's been retired for nearly 10 years. But what I see is significant risk. And what these financial advisors are telling you to do, which is just put your money into a tracker fund and everything will be okay. I believe that's complete nonsense. And I think you're taking a huge risk, because if it crashes just after or just before you retire, you could be facing significant problems in your retirement years. And it's difficult when you're 67, like I am, to suddenly go out and say, okay, I'll just go back to work for 20 years. It's ridiculous, okay? So you need to be careful. Why do I focus on these net wealth? Because that's the amount of money they would have if for whatever reason they just didn't get their pension. Don't think, you younger people that are saving for the future, please don't think that these state pensions are guaranteed. I cannot see how the countries in the European Union or the United Kingdom can possibly maintain even the pensions they have today. This is not going to work unless something fundamentally changes about the political and economic systems in Europe and in the UK. It's not going to happen. You have to make your own provision. And if you're making your own provision, and if it depends upon the European Stock Exchange, the American Stock Exchange, which are closely linked, I think you're taking a risk. What I did, and that's all I'm talking about here, is just my personal experience. What I did is I invested in the country of Georgia on the Black Sea, and I started to invest in 2004. And when I retired, age 58, I didn't have any problem. I mean, I lived very well, and the reason for that is that I had made provision early, and I had diversification into an economy that is not dependent at all, actually, on what happens in Europe or America. It's a country of 3.5 million people. It's on the Black Sea. It's on the old Silk Road trade route. It's a democracy, has extremely good freedom of speech. We have demonstrations all the time. It's been peaceful since 2008, just after I got there, when there was a small war. Because mainly it's peaceful because the government has as a stated purpose, it wants to have good relationships with its neighbors. The Caucasus is in some ways a very complicated area. You have Turkey and Russia and Armenia, Azerbaijan. But when the policy of the government is to avoid conflict and to have good relationships, the experience of the last decade or more is that it works. I believe that if you want to diversify away from this risk that seems to be inherent in the advice that's being given to people with PIPs, personal income, personal insurance, personal pension plans, and in stock-based wrappers that depend upon stock exchanges in Europe, UK, USA. If you want to diversify a little bit away from that, you should look at property, and property in your own country or in Europe is going to be exposed to the same risks that affect the stock exchanges, the economy. If you want to diversify away from that, then you need to look at another country. A lot of people have been doing this for 20 years in Dubai, but Dubai is not very easy for Europeans. It's very hot. It has a very authoritarian system. Women are not treated exactly the same. There's a lot of issues for the average British person, the average European, if they live in Dubai, or if they invest in Dubai. We're primarily on this podcast talking about investing, not living. But even to invest, it's nice to invest in a place where when you go and visit it, you like it. Investing in Georgian real estate is a real option. It's what I did 20 years ago. Today, the market has been going up in value consistently, 5 to 10%, nothing crazy. The standard of building is good. The great thing about Georgia, in my opinion, is not just that you're likely to get good yields. The great advantage is it's safe and secure. You can register in the Justice House. You know that it's your property. There's not going to be a problem with proof of ownership. You know that the banks are solid because the two biggest banks, Bank of Georgia and Bank of TBC Bank, are listed and have been listed for a very long time on the London Stock Exchange. So your bank accounts are going to be secure. And thirdly, the court system works. I've been doing business in Georgia for 22 years now, and when I've watched the courts work on commercial cases, it has worked as advertised, as it says on the can. This is independent, and I like it. So if you're interested in what I'm talking about, how to gather a pension without being completely dependent upon what happens to the stock exchange or the property market in Europe and the USA, if you're looking for that option of where can I diversify, I'm going to be talking about that, so follow me. Georgia's a buy. Thanks for your attention.